episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Well, folks, we are at episode 198. We are 2 episodes down before we hit 200 episodes for Codo Cinema. So that is exciting right there. Now, for this episode, I'm going to talk about a live action Disney movie remake. And to anybody who is listening, you made the right guess. It will be the live action remake of Walt Disney's Snow White. Although originally titled Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, this movie is just basically renamed Snow White. And the live action remake of Snow White is a 2025 American musical fantasy film directed by Mark Webb and written by Aaron Cressida Wilson, produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Mark Platt Productions. And this movie is a live action remake of Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which came out in 1937. And of course, it is based on the 1812 fairy tale Snow White by the Brothers Grimm. The movie stars Rachel Zegler in the title role with Andrew Burnap and Gal Gadot in supporting roles. It follows a pure-hearted Snow White who joins forces with seven dwarves and a bandit named Jonathan to free her kingdom from her cruel stepmother. Now, of course, okay, so there's a little bit of the plot right there. The plot of this movie is basically Snow White joining forces with seven dwarves and a bandit named Jonathan to free her kingdom from her cruel stepmother. Now, before I talk more about this movie, I just want to say, I think I just want to say I'm pretty tired of these live action Disney remakes, to be quite honest. Like almost every year so far, ever since Disney has announced a lot of live action remakes, a lot of people, including myself, have been let's just say this, been turning off, like feeling disinterest of like seeing these live action remakes of of beloved Disney classics, right? And Snow White is one of them. And in fact, plans for a remake of 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was confirmed back in October of 2016, with Wilson announced as a screenwriter. And then, of course, Mark Webb. In case if anybody wants to know who Mark Webb is, Mark Webb, who's a filmmaker, directed the first two Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and of course, entered talks to direct the film in May of 2019 and was announced as director in September of 2019. Filming took place primarily in London, England from March to July of 2022, with additional filming and pickups taking place in June of 2024. And the film's budget. Let me tell you this about the film's budget. The film's budget is basically 240 to 270 million dollars, which became one of the most expensive films ever made and Disney's 15th most expensive to date. Now upon the film's release, the film became the subject of several controversies leading up to its release, with criticism against the colorblind casting, story changes, Zegler's public critiques of the original film, including her and Gal Gadot's political views and reimagining of the Seven Dwarfs. And we will unpack that stuff too, just to let you know. So, and by the way, big spoilers ahead because I actually went to see this movie, and I'm gonna be honest. I was actually split on this movie, to be quite honest. And before I went to see this movie, I had low expectations going into this movie. But I wanted to go in, even though I had low expectations. I would rather see the movie before I give my own personal opinion on what I think about this movie. So, because I want to give my own personal opinion on what I think about this movie. So yes, I decided to go. So I decided to go watch this movie with my twin brother in theaters, and I'll be honest, it split me down the line. I kind of like it, and I kind of disliked it. So there you go. And of course, And of course, I will be getting into those controversies because that is one of the main reasons I had low expectations with this movie, just to let you know. And speaking of being split down the line, the film received mixed reviews from critics, so I guess a lot of critics were split on this movie as well. So anyway, so anyway, let's talk about the background of this movie. And yes, I will break down this movie as well, plus a little bit of trivia for you as well. And just to let everybody know, big spoilers ahead. So anyway, the film was announced back in October of 2016 that Walt Disney Pictures was developing a live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And as I mentioned, Mark Webb was brought on board to direct back in 2019. And then of course you have writer Aaron Cressida Wilson being brought on board to write the screenplay. However, the screenplay had more writers. It turns out Greta Gerwig was reported to be co-writing the screenplay. However, she went uncredited for the screenplay alongside other screenwriters like Jez Butterworth, Stephen Levinson, Jeff Nathanson, Victoria Strauss, and Chris Weitz. So then we got cast members on board, which includes Rachel Zegler. Now, how Rachel Zegler got on board with this movie was actually from director Steven Spielberg, who actually gave a glowing recommendation to Mark Webb after directing the 2021 film adaptation of West Side Story. And then, of course, there was also a casting search for a young actress to play the younger version of Snow White in the live-action remake, and Amelia Faucher was casted. Now, of course, Andrew Burnap was cast in 2022, and he was going to play a new character named Jonathan, replacing the character of the prince. So instead of having the prince, there's basically a bandit. Yes, Andrew Burnap in this movie plays a bandit named Jonathan. And then, of course, as for the evil queen, the Gal Gadot was cast as the evil queen. How about the Seven Dwarfs? You got Martin Kleba, who played one of the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies with Johnny Depp. He revealed that he would be portraying Grumpy in the film, to which Kleba previously played similar dwarf roles in prior productions based on Snow White, which includes a made-for-TV film Snow White, the Fairest of Them All, and of course Mirror Mirror, which came out in 2012. Other cast members who are playing the Seven Dwarfs, which includes Andrew Barth Feldman, Titus Burgess, Jason Kravitz, George Salazar, Jeremy Swift, and Andy Goldtuleshin, and they were all cast as the remaining members of the Seven Dwarfs. Filming for Snow White was originally set to begin in March of 2020 in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Los Angeles, California, but unfortunately, the pandemic took effect back in 2020. But so in August of 2021, it was announced that filming would take place in the United Kingdom from March to July of 2022, with principal photography taking place on March 7th of 2022. A fire damaged the production set on March 15th at Pinewood Studios. The stage was under construction when a tree reportedly caught on fire, leading to a huge blaze. A source from Disney confirmed that no filming was underway, and the shooting schedule was also revised for Rachel Zegler to travel to Los Angeles to present at the 94th Academy Awards ceremony on March 27th in support of her West Side Story colleagues, to which Ariane DeBose won the Academy Award that night. So she went out to show her support of her West Side Story colleagues. And while Zegler was attending the ceremony, Gal Gadot began filming her scenes as the evil queen. And unlike in the original, her character sings and dances in the film. And on April 22nd, Gal Gadot confirmed that she had completed filming her scenes, much later adding that she enjoyed playing the role of the first Disney villain and that she was able to make a more dramatic role by changing her voice due to the film being a musical. And on July 13th, Rachel Zegler revealed that filming had wrapped, with additional filming taking place in June of 2024. Now, dance choreographer Mandy Moore. Now, this is a different Mandy Moore, not the Mandy Moore who voiced Rapunzel in Disney's Tangle. This is a choreographer named Mandy Moore who did the work for La La Land, choreographed the musical sequences. So there's a little bit of production. So here's your background for you. Now we are going to move forward to the controversies. We are going to move forward to the controversies leading up to the film's release. So you better hold on to your butts. Not only are you going to hear a lot of controversies, the production of this movie is probably a prime example of production hell. Because not only were they filming, but there was a lot of controversy going on while this film was being made. So anyway, going to the first controversy pre-release is the casting of Snow White. And I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't think Rachel Zegler was a bad choice to play Snow White. To be quite honest, I understand now. To be quite honest, there's gonna be a lot of like controversy surrounding like who's gonna be casted, of who's gonna play the role, right? And the casting of Rachel Zegler, who is a Latina actress as Snow White, drew criticism as the character who is being described in the original material as skin white as snow. And that is actually a true thing in the original story, because in the original story of Snow White's skin is described as white as snow. Like, you hear the saying, hair black as ebony, lips red as the rose, skin white as snow. That is the main quote you hear from the original Snow White, including the 1937 film that came out, right? You're probably wondering, why couldn't they cast an actress with white skin to play the role of Snow White? I mean, it's in the title of it's the film's title, right? I mean, I'm a bit on the fence about it too. Like, I can see both sides on the matter. The casting of Rachel Zegler didn't bother me. I mean, I'm open to see new actresses playing the title role, but when you think about the film's, when you hear the film's title and this quote, hair black as night, lips red as the rose, skin white as snow, it does get you questioning, huh? Why is that? But to be quite honest, I mean, I didn't mind the casting as much. So, I mean, I understand people are going to have different opinions, but this is just my opinion, alright? But also, here's another twist to that. Aside from Rachel Zegler, Renata Valka was also one of the finalists in the casting process for the role of Snow White. So I guess Rachel Zegler was not the only Latina actress to be casted as Snow White. But Vaca stated that the casting call for the role of Snow White was open to all ethnic groups, and that the first phase of auditioning consisted of singing a Disney princess song. And in October 2024, Zegler revealed that in the film, the character would be given the name Snow White after she and her parents survived a snowstorm, to remind her of her resilience, which Zegler says was a plotline used in another version of the fairy tale. Are you sure the snowstorm didn't come from Elsa? Because the opening of the film, spoiler alert, opens up with a snowstorm, so I'm assuming Elsa couldn't let it go. Oh man. But casting aside, the reimagining of the Seven Dwarfs drew a lot of controversy as well. Because in January of 2022, actor Peter Dinklage, who has a form of dwarfism and has played dwarfish characters in his career, commented on the upcoming live-action Snow White remake, dismissing it as a backward story. In response to Dinklage's comments, Disney stated that to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, and I am quoting this by the way, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. And end of quote right there. Okay? End of quote. This is the Walt Disney Company making this statement. However, it didn't sit well with numerous actors with dwarfism, like Dylan Postl, otherwise known as Hornswoggle from the WWE, including Jeff Brooks and Katrina Kemp, responded negatively to Dinklage's comments, feeling he was unduly speaking on their behalf and costing them roles. Now, I actually agree with the complaints right here from Dylan Polstol, Jeff Brooks, and Katrina Kemp, because what Peter Dinklage said, it costed them these roles because seeing dwarf actors playing the dwarf characters in the Snow White movie would have been amazing. But no, that's not the case at all because Peter Dinklage thought that the original Snow White was more of a backwards story for the dwarves. Because one of the comments he made is that, oh yeah, the dwarves live in a cave, which is not true because the dwarves in the original were living in a cottage. And of course, they also worked in the mines as well. They're basically working class dwarves. Even Hornswoggle, who is the guy that I mentioned, pointed this out too. And of course, this continues on and this continues on and on. And in July of 2023, footage of the production for Berkshire revealed that the depiction of the seven dwarves had been reimagined for the film, consisting of one actor with dwarfism, along with six other non-dwarf actors of varying ethnicity. Six males and one female portraying the associated set of seven individuals who were originally all portrayed as supernatural beings from German folklore, which is basically dwarves and not actual human beings. And of course, I am talking about the bandits because in July of 2023, there was a behind the scenes footage. There was a behind the scenes footage and photo. There was some behind the scenes footage of seven people, which basically are actually revealed to be bandits. But unfortunately, I think the original idea for that was supposed to be the depiction of the seven dwarves, and it really went the wrong way for a lot of people. Even though there were initial reports on that, but unfortunately that has been denied, and that these images depicted the actual film production. And Disney later confirmed that they did not indeed depict the production with stand-in actors substituting for the leads. The already confirmed actor Martin Kleba not appearing in said footage. And the decision to reimagine the characters as such was criticized by mainstream and social media sources as being overly politically correct, as well as potentially taking away acting opportunities from the dwarfism community. And that is a true fact, and I mentioned that already too because of how Dylan Hornswoggle felt about this too, including Jeff Brooks and Katrina Kemp. So basically, what I'm saying here, Disney and Peter Dinklage took those roles away right? And the dwarf and the fact that the dwarfism community fired back at Peter Dinklage and Disney really says something right there. So yeah. That was not a good move right there. There's also another actor with dwarfism, and that is Jason Weeman Acuna from Jackass, and he criticized Disney for not casting dwarf actors and expressed disappointment about the changes. And Weeman said, and I quote, "You're replacing jobs that people could have as little people. It's for dwarfs. Why are you hiring Snow White and the seven average people?" I mean, he's not wrong. Jason Weeman Acuna is not wrong about this. Because when you really think about it, these dwarf actors could play the seven dwarves in live action instead of, using motion captured CGI. I think using real life dwarf actors playing these characters would have been a smart move. And Dylan Postl also disagreed with Peter Dinklage's views. And of course, this is also connecting to Weeman's sentiments, and defended the portrayal of the dwarf characters in the animated film. In October 2023, coinciding with an announcement of the film's delay, Disney unveiled a first look image for the film, which included the seven dwarfs, all of which are CGI characters made to look similar to their appearances in the 1937 film. And speaking of 1937 film, even Rachel Zegler has some, let's just say, choice words for the original 1937 film. So, Rachel Zegler attracted criticism over statements expressing disapproval with aspects of the original film, including the prince and Snow White's characterization. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, though. I really, really enjoyed the 1937 original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, at the time of that film, to be quite honest, it was considered to be Disney's folly, but Disney himself, Walt Disney himself, proved everybody wrong, and it became a huge success, and it paved the way, opened the door to the future of the Walt Disney Company and future Walt Disney films, right? While I'm talking about, well, I guess characterization, if you want to say, Snow White, particularly in the Disney version, is often interpreted as representing innocence, beauty, and the triumph of good over evil, while also being a symbol of passive femininity and the dangers of unchecked vanity. Like, that's basically what the original Snow White in the original 1937 film represented. Now, now according to Rachel Zegler, that's not what Rachel Zegler thought of for Snow White. So, now this whole controversy came out in 2022. She spoke about the story changes at the 2022 D23 Expo, and I quote, "The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird, weird. So we didn't do that this time. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude, but it's really not about her love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. All of Andrew's seeds could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." That's what she said at the D23 Expo, and on top of that, Zegler criticized jokes about the new Snow White character being PC, saying that the cartoon was old and needed a refresh to give the character a function beyond "someday my prince will come." Now, okay, now look, now I don't mind some changes to Snow White, but we're talking about Disney's Snow White, right? We're talking about Disney's Snow White, and the fact that she said that there's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her really, really turned people the wrong way, because in the original Snow White, that was not the case. That's not the case at all in the original Snow White. I mean, it was just a simple it was a simple fairy tale. It was a simple fairy tale. I mean, yeah. When the prince saw Snow White for the first time, yeah, he accidentally scared her. I mean, he didn't. I don't think he meant to scare her at all. It just caught Snow White by surprise, because in the opening of the original Snow White, like, Snow White is at this wishing well, wishing for her true love, and the fact that the prince, who at the end of the movie turned out to be her true love, came by surprise. I mean, it was just a surprise. It wasn't a creep out moment, but it was something that really surprised her. Like, oh wow, that was quick. That sort of thing. So, and the fact that Rachel Zegler called the prince a stalker. I mean, come on, girl. Why are you saying that the prince is stalking Snow White? The whole movie, he was not in the whole movie. He was only in it for the beginning, and came at the end of the movie. That was basically it. And the fact that she was joking that Andrew Burnap's scenes could get cut, like, that was just low. And of course, in response to her comments, many rebuked her for making Snow White more feminist, while others criticized her for misinterpreting feminism with accusations of promoting the girl boss archetype, or connecting women that seek traditional feminine roles, or are uninterested in power or leadership. Now, that was the thing that turned people off immediately. Like, a lot of people did not like the comments that Rachel Zegler said. Now, it's one thing to criticize the original Snow White. Now, look, I understand that not everybody is a fan of the original Snow White, and you know what? That's totally fine. I mean, if you don't like the original Snow White, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, there's good. I mean, I'm okay with that. And to be quite honest, yes, it is the first Walt Disney animated full-length feature film that started it all. I mean, yeah, it's going to have flaws, but I thought it was a good. I thought it was a good film. I thought the original film was good. I enjoyed it. But of course, I mean, I know a lot of people are not gonna like the original movie, and that's fine. But when you criticize the film just because it doesn't fit your modern take, in this day of age, is basically modern day, right? And there's gonna be like, oh yeah, oh, Snow White should be more of a feminist, and the prince is basically a stalker. Like, that is not the case in the original film. The original film is a product of its time. And the fact that this movie, like some people would say that, oh yeah, this film doesn't fit my how people view movies today, right? In modern times, that's gonna raise a lot of questions because, as I mentioned, the movie itself, the original movie, is a product of its time. Like, Snow White wasn't even meant to be a girl boss anyway. Like, she's not a girl boss. Snow White is never meant to be a girl boss anyway. Like, as I mentioned, Snow White is represented as innocence, beauty, and the triumph of good over evil, while also being a symbol of passive femininity and the dangers of unchecked vanity. That's what Snow White represents in the original film. The new movie, the new Snow White movie, yeah, it's basically the complete opposite. I mean, I guess there are some aspects are still there, but the way of where Disney was going with this live action remake, yeah, pretty much with that. She also mentions that Snow White is not going to be saved by the prince, and of course, as I mentioned, also mentions that she's basically, taking back her kingdom from the evil queen, to which her father once ruled, right? Although in 2024, there is some clarification that the film is will still involve a love story, and stated, "It made me sad that it was taken in such a way. It can be very upsetting when things get taken out of context or jokes don't land." And I'll be honest, she was obviously joking about that too, and that is not a good sign, especially during an interview. Like, the fact that she was joking about it whilst making these statements is already a red flag. And speaking of red flags, David Hand, whose father of the same name co-directed the original animated film, criticized the remake, describing it as insulting and suggesting that his father and Walt Disney would be turning in their graves. It's bad enough when the son of the father with the same name who co-directed the original animated film will come out and criticize the remakes. So there's another red flag right there, and going so far to say that his father and Walt Disney will be turning in their graves. The fact that a family member who has a father who co-directed the original one will come out and say something to criticize the remake says a lot. Yeah, this is what happens when you piss off the son of the original co-director of the original movie right there. And of course, speaking of pissing off people, both Gal Gadot and Zegler have been openly vocal about some of their political stances, which caused further controversy for the film. Now, this does go into a bit of political territory right here, and I don't want to talk about politics in this episode, but the fact that this is something that is going on between Zegler and Gadot really says something, so bear with me, please. So, the release of the film's teaser trailer provoked calls to boycott the film from both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict due to Gadot and Zegler's opposing stances on the conflict, in particular, the war in Gaza. With Gadot, who, by the way, Gal Gadot is Israeli, so she's from Israel, while Zegler was supporting Palestine. And of course, there was also another boycott. There was also another call to boycott the film was made by Republican supporters in the aftermath of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. And of course, yes, this is also referencing to the whole presidential election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And Zegler called out Trump supporters, including voters and Trump himself, to never know peace. And that's what she said. That's what Rachel Zegler said. So, and look, I don't care which side of the political aisle you are on or whoever you're voting for, but that does not mean you should call them out like that. Call them out and telling them, "Oh, you will never know peace." And that's what Rachel Zegler said to those guys. And this basically means she pissed off half of her audience. And this is not a good sign either, right? This is not a good sign either because almost half the audience that Zegler decided to go after told him to never know peace didn't want to just like told him like I was like, "Oh, so you're telling me that you don't want us to know peace and don't want to see your movie? Okay, bye-bye." So yeah. So Zegler lost half of her audience for there. And it doesn't matter which side of the political aisle you're on. Don't go after the audience who are looking forward to seeing this person's movie, right? Because Zegler at the time, like because this was a few months before the film's release, and she's trying to promote this movie, but when it comes to like getting people into this movie to watch, you gotta make people excited for it because some of these people that because almost half the audience that Rachel Zegler told them to like go away. Those were like half the audience, no matter what side of the political aisle you are on, right? But I'm sorry, with controversies like this, that's gonna change a lot of views on how people are gonna see your movie, Rachel Zegler. That's what I'm pointing out right here. She later issued a public apology saying that she did not intend any harm with her message while offering a call for peace. But I believe the damage was already done with that. Even people who saw her apology message, let's just say the apology didn't turn out that well. There was also more controversy that came out too, especially during the 2025 Oscars when Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot were presenting, and this also came to light that both Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, let's just say they didn't get along with each other after. Let's just say they did not get along with each other, especially with the whole fact that and also because of the whole because of the whole war of Gaza situation and basically Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler supporting like which side, right? So yeah. Now I know this is dragging on, but this is like that was a lot to unpack from, especially behind the scenes and the controversies. So that's basically the background, right? This is basically the whole background of this situation, right? Now, how about the end result of this movie? Now, as I said, the end result of this movie split me down the line, and there were a lot, and people gave mixed reviews for this movie. So for me, the movie itself wasn't that bad to be quite honest, but I could definitely understand the problems that went on behind the scenes, and of course the low expectations of this movie as well. So there were definitely a lot of low expectations, and the behind the scenes controversies did not help this movie at all. Like like a lot like this movie became like an international punchline because also the mentioning the reimagining of the Seven Dwarves, right? Like people are turning this title into a punchline, right? So it's basically so there's a lot of different titles for this movie just to poke fun of, right? There is a YouTube channel called Chat Music, and it made about four YouTube music videos taking comments from the Snow White trailers and putting it into a song, poking fun of how bad the movie is going to be when people are going to go see it. And like I said, this movie's received mixed reviews, and of course it split me down the line. But at the same time, there's probably gonna be some people who probably would go to see this movie too. But anyway, that's enough about that. So let's get to the breakdown of this movie, shall we? And by the way, as I mentioned, huge spoilers ahead for this movie. So the movie opens up in a snowstorm where I'm pretty sure this is Elsa's snowstorm, basically a reference to Frozen. Hey, I guess Elsa could have let it go, so she decided to bring in a snowstorm to open the movie up, I guess. So a benevolent king and queen welcomed their daughter during a snowstorm, naming her Snow White to honor the day. Years later, the queen falls ill and dies. The king hastily remarries, taking a mysterious woman as his second wife, before leaving to mount a campaign against an imminent threat to the realm's southern borders. When he fails to return, the new queen usurps the throne, revealing herself as an enchantress whose vanity surpasses her beauty. Under the evil queen's rule, and the evil queen is being played by Gal Gadot, people are either left destitute due to the heavy taxation or conscripted into the royal guard. Everyone presumes Snow White is dead, unaware that she is confined to the palace as a scullery maid. The queen, fearful that Snow White's beauty will someday outshine her own, consults a magic mirror, and the magic mirror is being played by Patrick Page, to which, fun fact, Patrick Page is a on-stage actor who actually played Scar in the Lion King stage production, and of course, Judge Claude Frollo in the stage production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, that's actually pretty interesting. Now he's playing the magic. Now he's playing the magic mirror, and I'll be honest, his design, the magic mirror's design, is actually pretty cool. Even though it's CGI, it's still a pretty cool design. And of course, the evil queen, to which that's who Gal Gadot plays, talks in a magic mirror and says, "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all?" And the mirror always responds in her favor, pleasing her. At the time in the beginning of the film, the magic mirror favors the evil queen, but unfortunately, Snow White dethrones the evil queen, badumts, in being the fairest one of all, right? Oh my goodness. Well, I guess you could say outside of that, a lot of people reversed that decision because, let's just say after the whole controversies between Rachel Zegler, a lot of people were thinking that, oh no, the magic mirror is lying. Gal Gadot's the fairest one of all. I mean, a lot of people were making jokes about that because of the controversies, but that's a whole different thing right there. I mean, Rachel Zegler is not that bad. Come on. I mean, Rachel Zegler. There is some beauty to Rachel Zegler, but obviously enough, her personality. Yeah, I can understand that her personality is notwithstanding for Rachel Zegler, right? Anyway, let's move forward. One day, Snow White catches Jonathan, the cynical leader of a band of thieves, raiding the pantry when he is sentenced to be tied to the gates. She frees him and gives him a piece of bread. That same day, the magic mirror proclaims Snow White is now the fairest. And then the evil queen is enraged and orders her huntsman, and the huntsman is being played by Ansu Kabiya, and she orders the huntsman to take Snow White to the countryside, I guess, or to the countryside to pick out apples, because in the movie when Snow White was a little girl, she would pick out apples and make apple pie for the kingdom, to which the evil queen despises of. And of course the husband's like, "But your majesty, the little princess, she's just a child." But the evil queen is like, "Are you defying my order? Are you defying my orders?" And the husband's like, "No, your majesty, I'm not." So it's like she orders the huntsman to go out to the countryside to pick out apples, and while doing that, the queen also tells the huntsman to bring back her heart in this box. So this is the same box from the original Snow White. You know, like where the evil queen, the original voice actress for the evil queen was played by Lucille Laverne, and she was like, "Bring back her heart in this," and we get to see that box. But unfortunately, we get to see that box. But on top of that, the evil queen in the live action remake says, once you do that, I will give you anything your heart desires. Which I'm pretty sure is a reference to the When You Wish Upon a Star. You know, the lyric says, anything your heart desires. You know, I believe that's the lyric, right? I'm pretty sure that's like the lyric, one of the lyrics to When You Wish Upon a Star, right? So we get a When You Wish Upon a Star reference or of some sort, right? So anyway, Snow White and the Huntsman. What a clever title right there. I mean, Christian Stewart did that. Christian Stewart did that back in 2012 with Chris Hemsworth. So the huntsman cannot bring himself to fulfill the task. Like the way how it's set up, right? Like we see Snow White in front of what looks to be a rocky cliff a little bit, and the huntsman comes up from behind. Is trying to he pulls out his dagger and he's pointing it at Snow White from the front, and she was like, "What are you doing? I don't understand. Why?" And to me, it didn't. I'm like, really, really? You could have just at least scared her. Like, why couldn't he just cover her mouth from behind and try to cover her mouth, make it more scary, right? Because in the original, when the huntsman was coming up from behind Snow White turns around and screams in agony when the huntsman was about to kill her with the dagger. But why couldn't we get something similar to that in the live action remake? Like, Snow White was scared, but she wasn't acting like a damsel in distress, right? Even if they don't want to make her a damsel in distress in that moment, the husband could have at least covered her mouth to avoid hearing her scream, right? This is just me, just to make the scene a lot better. Yeah, it'll be scary, but it'll at least add a bit of suspense and terror to that, right? Oh, the horror! The huntsman's gonna kill Snow White. No, I'm gonna drop the knife, and I can't do it. I can't do the huntsman couldn't do it, right? That part's coming, right? The huntsman couldn't do it, so he tells Snow White to run away into the forest. Like, he knows that the evil queen is evil, right? And of course, the queen's intention. So Snow White runs away in the forest. Although I'll be honest, the forest sequence in this movie, it was okay. It was okay, but it wasn't as frightening as what the original had. Like, the original forest sequence where Snow White is running away was frightening. It was very hellish. Like Snow White was scared to death in the original Snow White. Like, it was like the forest sequence was obviously one of the scariest moments in that movie. This movie, yeah, I guess you could say it was a bit scary, but it wasn't as frightening, right? Like, the music didn't even help either, too. Like, I'm sorry, I was not impressed with the music in this movie at all. And I will get to them. I will get to the songs as well. But yeah, but yeah. And also a side note too. She loses the red bow in that sequence as well. So yeah, so the red bow that is on her head is not in the movie for very much. So lost and frightened, she's befriended by forest animals, to which I'll be completely honest, the CGI in the forest animals are not that good at all. Even the deer that Snow White first saw in the movie, and of course the film's trailer, the CGI on that is terrible. I did not like the CGI animals in this movie. Like, it feels unrendered and incomplete in this movie. And speaking of which, yes, there is a lot of CGI in this movie, a lot of visual effects. I'll be honest, the visual effects in this movie are hit or miss. And I feel like this is because the animators and artists are being rushed while making this movie, to be quite honest, which resulted in these CGI and visual effects being poorly rendered and unfinished, right? Now, of course, the forest animals led Snow White to a reclusive cottage, which is basically the dwarf's cottage, and unbeknownst to Snow White, the cottage is owned by 7 dwarfs named Doc, Grumpy, Bashful, Sleepy, Sneezy, Happy, and Dopey, all of whom spend their days working in a diamond mine. And they find her asleep in their beds, take pity on her when she tells them of her plight, and allow her to stay for one night. And even Grumpy was on the fence about it too. Like Grumpy is like there is a moment in this movie where of where how Grumpy got his name. He's just basically misunderstood, right? Like Grumpy, like, oh yeah, I'm Grumpy. I'm basically misunderstood. Phooey. Grumpy is just basically, grumpy, but it's basically misunderstood. Actually, that part actually gave me a chuckle in the theater, right? Like of how Grumpy got his name. Grumpy's just basically misunderstood. So yeah, that's the reason why he's Grumpy. Oh boy. Anyway, but even he wants Snow White to leave the cottage. So it's like, what the hell is this person doing? Like, the evil queen's gonna find us. She's gotta leave. Like, even at the point that he's fine with Snow White staying for one night, right? And I'm gonna be completely honest. There is not much character in Grumpy. Like, the only character development out of the 7 dwarves is basically Dopey, and I'll get to that soon. So anyway, yeah, the dwarves find her asleep in the beds, take pity on her when she tells them of her plight, and allow her to stay for one night. Upon discovering that Snow White is alive, after the magic mirror identifies the heart she was given as an apple instead of, the heart of a pig, right? So this is an apple. And the queen imprisons the huntsman and orders her guards to find her. By the way, Gal Gadot has 2 musical numbers in this movie. So Snow White meets up with Jonathan again. The whole conversation between Snow White and Jonathan in the forest, I believe that is one of few scenes that they actually filmed on location, because the whole conversation in the forest feels like an actual scene that is actually filmed on location. And to be quite honest, I think that is actually a good thing, because this is something I kind of liked. I really want to see more of, stuff being filmed on location rather than relying so much on visual effects, green and blue screen a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can work if done right, but what was seeing more of on-set locations, to me, I think that is a good thing, because I want to see the real deal, right? You want to see the real deal, right? And I think the conversation between Snow White and Jonathan in the forest, while being on sets like that, like this is on actual location like that, is actually a good thing. Now the two realize their feelings for each other before Jonathan departs to find the king, who Snow White is convinced that the king is still alive. Also a side note, we get introduced to the thieves or the bandits in this movie, and they're basically 7 bandits, to which one of the bandits is being played by an actual dwarf actor. So yeah, Peter Dinklage and Disney decided to not cast dwarf actors to play the actual 7 dwarves, but they're okay of having a dwarf actor playing a bandit in this movie. I mean, what the hell? Come on, that's just ridiculous. But anyway, there's also a fight going on too, where Jonathan and the bandits are fighting off the guards, but Snow White comes up with a diversion to distract the guards, and she uses some old medieval costumes to recreate the Snow White dress, and distract the guards, which actually worked. However, Jonathan gets injured. Like, he gets shot in the chest, but he gets shot by one of the guards, and he gets delivered but to the 7 dwarfs, which Doc, who operates on him, almost made a fake out to say that Jonathan is dead, but no, Jonathan is alive. So basically, his procedure was a success. So it was basically a cop-out saying that, oh, Jonathan died. No, Jonathan is actually alive. The procedure actually worked. Doc the dwarf. Doctor. And then, of course, the dwarves and the bandits have their dancing, this silly song dance number, and of course, Snow White and Jonathan also have a musical moment as well. So yeah. But anyway, back at the castle, Jonathan gets captured by the guards and imprisoned by the queen, who retreats to her secret chambers, and uses and decides to make a potion to transform into, the old hag from the original. And the way how they did it was, in my opinion, it felt rushed, right? Like in the original, it was built up in the original. Like she took her time making that potion. She used like different ingredients, like a scream of fright, mummy dust, a blast of lightning, a blast of wind and lightning and thunder to add to the potion, and she drinks it, and then the transformation was crazy and scary. It was frightening. It was scary. But this transformation, not so much. I felt empty during that transformation. I thought it was gonna be like a scary thing. Nope, that's not what happened in this movie. It was just like she drank the potion, and while she's walking downstairs, she transforms into the wicked old hag, right? And I couldn't even tell if that was Gal Gadot doing the voice of the old hag. I mean, I was actually surprised, but unfortunately, when she's making the poison apple, I'm just like, that did not sound like an old hag, right? It didn't sound like. I don't know what was going on. Like, was it because of the direction or something? I don't know. Was it bad direction or something? I don't know. It sounded more like Gal Gadot rather than Gal Gadot trying to do like an old woman an old woman voice, right? So anyway, the evil queen turns into the old hag and creates a poison apple to curse Snow White with the sleeping death. And then of course we do get a glimpse of how this whole thing could be cured, which is basically love's first kiss, right? And we see a glimpse of that. So after the dwarves leave for work, the queen finds their cottage and tricks Snow White into eating the apple by saying she is an ally of Jonathan's, which is basically a full-on lie, and reveals to her stepdaughter that she killed her father. So we're going into Lion King territory, right? You know how in Lion King where Scar was the one who killed Mufasa, who's basically Simba's father. So yeah, that's kind of like that's the situation this is at right now, because now this is the evil queen revealing to Snow White that, oh yeah, the evil queen killed Snow White's father. So yeah, that's what happened, and that was happening right after Snow White was. That's what happened after Snow White ate the poison apple. Like, she told Snow White that, oh yeah, your father, oh yeah, oh yeah, the evil queen killed the father, right? And Snow White falls into sleeping death, and the queen retreats to her castle. The dwarfs find her sleeping body upon returning, and of course they do like a little, I think it's a funeral, I guess. Although they didn't even use a glass coffin, they just put her on a rock and create. They just put her on a rock, and they basically build flowers around the rock, just to make a bed, like a funeral bed, right? And Jonathan, who escaped the queen's dungeon with the help of the huntsman, and by the way, I actually do like the escape of both the huntsman and Jonathan. Like, they both pulled out the chains, right? They were tugging on the chains to break the wall, right? Like that is being hooked onto the wall. So they pulled and pulled until it breaks, right? Hey, teamwork, I guess. So Snow White awakens and rallies the dwarves and Jonathan's fellow thieves to overthrow the evil queen. Oh, by the way, yes, Jonathan Jonathan discovers Snow White being dead, and mournfully kisses her. And you know the rest, right? Like, Snow White's alive. Yep, Snow White's alive. Hooray! Hooray! So then Snow White confronts her stepmother, who goads her to take the throne by force, placing a diamond dagger into her hand. This is like a trial. Like, So, you want the throne, huh? Well, take this dagger, strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be completed. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But that's what it felt like, right? Like at this point, like the evil queen's trying to test Snow White, like to strike her down, right? That's what it felt like between Luke Skywalker and the Emperor and Return of the Jedi, right? That's like, why are like is Disney trying to rip that off too, right? Why are we getting a Star Wars reference in Snow White? Okay, so okay, I'm pretty sure. Okay, we got a Frozen reference. We got a Frozen reference, Lion King reference, Star Wars reference. What's next? Wonder Woman reference. So anyway, Snow White refuses to hurt her, instead reminding the people what the kingdom used to be like under her parents' rule. Moved by the memories and the princess's kindness, the guards stand up to the queen and join the civilians. The queen tries to attack Snow White in rage, but the dwarves and Jonathan's fellow thieves defend her. The magic mirror tells the queen that Snow White will always be fairer than her due to being kind and just. Snow White arrives to see the queen, destroying the mirror, which is revealed to be the source of her powers. As a result, she turns into glass herself and disappears into a vortex while the magic mirror repairs itself. And of course, the end of the movie is basically a celebration being held as Snow White is being named the new queen and marries Jonathan and justly rules the land. And that's basically it. That's how the movie ends. So, wow. I'm gonna be completely honest. I am split on this movie. There are some aspects of this movie I like, while there are some aspects of this movie I don't like. Now, what? Now the good. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't think aside from Rachel Zegler's, you know, aside from the whole Rachel Zegler controversy that was going on, she wasn't that bad. I thought Rachel Zegler in this movie was pretty good. Now, I didn't think she was great. I thought she was all right. Like her performance in this movie is okay at best. I'll say that. Right? And I think and I believe it's passable, right? Now, I don't know, I can't really tell what scenes were reshot, right? Because this movie did go through some reshoots too, right? And I couldn't tell which scenes were reshot, but at the same time, she was okay. I thought she was an okay actress, but I'm going to be completely honest, she will not top the original voice actress for Snow White. That's right, folks. Adriana Castellotti was the original voice actress for Snow White, and in my personal opinion, Rachel Zegler will never top the original voice actress for Snow White. Like, like, I'm just saying, like this is Rachel Zegler's own take on Snow White, and I thought she did a fine job. Like, not a great job, but a fine job as well. But the biggest standout from that is her singing. Like, Rachel Zegler can sing. Like, she is a really, really good singer. Like, she sings a lot of songs in this movie. Whistle While You Work. She did the singing for that. I thought she was real good with it. And then there was another song too, and I think it was called "The Girl I Meant to Be." I think that's the title of the song, right? And I thought her singing for that was pretty good. And yeah, actually no, I take that back. "Waiting on a Wish," right? Although I see it as more as "The Girl I Meant to Be." "Waiting on a Wish" is the name of the song, and Rachel Zegler did a very good job singing that. She did really good, and that was in the beginning of the movie too. And speaking of songs, some of the songs in this movie, I can only pinpoint. I thought, as much as I like "Waiting on a Wish," I thought that was pretty good. The "Hi Ho" song from the dwarves, I thought that was pretty good too. And that was somewhere in the middle of the movie when the dwarves were going there and back to the mines, and them singing "Hi Ho" really brought me nostalgia vibes. Like, it sounded really good, and it gave me a couple laughs too, because it opened the door to the introduction of the dwarves working in the mines, and of course it reminded me a little bit of the opening to The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, where the dwarves were working in the mines when they found the Arkenstone. That's what this whole high ho sequence reminds me of, and I thought it was pretty good. And I will get to their CGI very soon. So we're still on the I'm still on the positives of this for now. So anyway, but and Whistle While You Work. Whistle While You Work was a good rendition as well. Was a good rendition? Was a good rendition as well, and I thought that was okay. But anyway, another good thing of this movie is I thought Snow White's conversations with Dopey was actually pretty good, because in this movie it turns out Dopey, well, yes, Dopey is nonverbal, but her conversations with Dopey I thought were pretty cute. And of course, it's the fact that Snow White doesn't know that Dopey doesn't talk, right? And that's the main thing. Dopey doesn't really talk, and he does get a couple of lines of dialogue in this movie towards the end, right? He talks. Dopey talks in this movie, but his conversation with Snow White, I thought that was a good addition to the movie, and he actually gets a little bit more character in this movie, which is something more of an opposite to what Grumpy had in the original Snow White, right? But anyway, to move forward, one more good thing to mention from this movie is some of the costumes, right? The costumes for the Evil Queen and Snow White, even though it looked cheap, I thought the costumes for both Snow White and the Evil Queen were okay. I thought they were fine. Like, the Evil Queen's costume looks very elegant, right? It has an elegant feel while trying to be, threatening, right? I thought that was pretty good. And Snow White's costume, I thought it was okay too. And while it did look more of like, a Party City-esque costume, I thought it was okay. The only thing it was missing is the red bow on her head, instead of this Lord Farquaad haircut style, if you know what I'm saying. Like if the red bow, if she kept the red bow on this movie for the whole, if she kept the red bow for the rest of the movie, it wouldn't make much of a difference. I thought it would have been okay, but the costume itself, I thought the costume was okay, and the scene between Snow White and Jonathan in the forest while being on actual location, I thought that was another good scene. I thought that was another good scene when Jonathan and Snow White met in the forest while on location. I thought that was another good scene too, but I think it's just because like it's actually on location, right? But anyway, let's get to the bad side of things. So dun 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 dun, bad to the bone, dun 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 dun. So yeah. So anyway, one of the main bad things about this movie, controversies aside, the CGI on the dwarves is very, very bad. Like this is connecting to the whole Peter Dinklage comments of the fact that, oh yeah, they took away oh yeah, the dwarf actors should not play the seven dwarves. Yeah, so that's what happened. So yeah, so they decided to use motion capture CGI to recreate the seven dwarves, and that did not sit well. And I'm sorry, the designs for the dwarves, well, I don't mind the designs, but the CGI for them looks so creepy. Especially Dopey. Like, Dopey looks like the hero boy from the Polar Express, and at the very least, Robert Zemeckis was at least smart enough not to use motion capture CGI for the live action remake of Pinocchio. So at the very least, Robert Zemeckis made a smart move not to use motion capture CGI for the whole movie, right? But the dwarves, like oh my goodness, the actual motion capture CGI for the dwarves, it looked so creepy and uncanny. It reminds you of the motion capture movies that Robert Zemeckis did. But at least with those movies looked far better than those dwarves in the live action remake of Snow White. I mean, this is like going back to what I'm saying. I mean, Disney should have casted dwarf actors to play the seven dwarves, but nope, that's not what they did. That's not what they did. Instead, they only had one dwarf actor to, play a bandit. And look, I don't have a problem with one dwarf actor playing one of the bandits, but it sounds more like a double standard. But, whatever. While I'm on the subject of the CGI, the CGI, aside from the dwarves, the CGI is hit or miss, but the animal CGI animals didn't look as good. And and you could also tell that the sets are, but you could also definitely tell there is some green screen added to some of the scenes to this movie as well. You know what I'm saying, right? And I believe another offender for this movie is Gal Gadot's performance as the evil queen. Now, look, I love Gal Gadot, but I'm sorry to say this, Gal Gadot was not that great in this movie at all. Like her performance is, let's just say, so bad it's good. It's a so bad it's good type of way, but to me, like, I didn't think she was that great. Part of me wonders if they only used one take, right? It sounds like she was doing a one take performance rather than, going for many takes, right? If you know what I'm saying. A part of me wonders about that. But what adds to this is her musical numbers, right? She gets two musical numbers in this movie, and I wasn't that impressed with her musical numbers at all. Like, her first musical numbers is "All Is Fair," and that is when she arrests the huntsman and puts the huntsman in the dungeon. And another musical number comes is basically "All Is Fair" reprise, right? So that's like the reprise of "All Is Fair," and I was not impressed with her musical number, to be quite honest. Look, I love Gal Gadot, but half the time she's like, I don't think she was trying at all, right? I don't think she was trying at all. It sounds like, I mean, I guess you could say she did try her best, but the execution of it didn't turn out as well. This reminds me of Magnifico in Disney's Wish. And yes, here's another reference, Disney's Wish, right? Like, this is kind of like Disney's Wish, where the only difference from that is the fact that, oh yeah, Snow White is the hero while the evil queen is the villain. That's the only difference, because in Wish it feels like the exact opposite, where Magnifico was the good guy and Asha was the bad guy, but unfortunately that was not the case of how it was written, right? But at the very least, Magnifico. But at the very least, Chris Pine can sing in that movie, right? Gal Gadot's singing, I thought it was okay, but it wasn't as great. I mean, at the very least, I can at least remember her song from Wreck-It Ralph 2, she where she and Vanellope von Schweetz was singing Slaughter Race or Slaughter Town or wherever it's called in that Wreck-It Ralph sequel, right? I mean, Gal Gadot has done other movie roles besides Wonder Woman. Like, everybody's going to remember Gal Gadot for Wonder Woman, but she had other movie roles too. Like in Wreck-It Ralph 2, she played a Shank. I think that's her name. I think that's her name, Shank, right? She was also in this movie with Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I forgot the name of the movie, but she was also in the Fast and Furious movies too. That's some of her other roles outside of Wonder Woman, right? But the Evil Queen, I thought Gal Gadot was an interesting choice for the Evil Queen, but at the same time, her performance was not that great. I mean, you could definitely pinpoint to say that, oh, maybe they used only one take, or at the same time it just felt so bad it's good. But in retrospect, I guess you could say she also had fun with this role too. I mean, it's kind of nice to see Gal Gadot outside of Wonder Woman, but at the same time, I didn't think her performance was that great. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's just me. I mean, some people will probably say, "Oh, she was just having fun," and I can agree with that as well. But to be honest, her performance was not that great in this movie. And going back to the songs, I know I mentioned the songs, "Hi Ho," "Waiting on a Wish," and "Whistle While You Work," but some of the other songs were not as memorable as well. I didn't think the songs were as great, right? They were not as memorable. They were not as memorable. I didn't think they were as great. Aside from "Way on a Wish," "Whistle While You Work," and "Hi Ho," I thought those were the only songs that I generally like in this movie. And another thing to criticize are the rest of the costumes. Like, some of the costumes in this movie look real cheap outside of Snow White and the Evil Queen's costumes. Like, the costumes look really, really cheap. And add insult to injury, the film's budget is 240 to 270 million dollars. And the movie's costumes look cheap. And how in the hell is this film's budget that big, right? You have a real big budget, but yet the costumes look real cheap. How is that possible when you have a big budget? And the story wasn't as great while I'm at it too. Like the story could have been better, and like they could have written a better story, and yet have and the budget for it and the money's budget will come, right? Like imagine and going back to the costumes, like I said, because I'm comparing it because it looks cheap, and since the film's budget is real high, it really says something when you have cheap costumes like that, especially on the bandits. Like the costume for the bandits look like they got it out of ye old thrift shop. And even the soldiers' costumes look really cheap too, right? Like the blue and black striped clothing that goes around the shiny armors. Like, really? Oh man. But anyway, that's my opinion on that. But anyway, to mention the whole girl boss archetype for Snow White. In my opinion, it did not fit. It wasn't needed in this movie. Like Disney to this day thought that making their Disney princesses in their live action remakes to be girl bosses, like that trend alone is getting very tiresome. Like Snow White, for example, like she was never meant to be a girl boss. At least in the Disney version. Like I know other studios do that in some of their takes of Snow White, but at the same time, they at the very least try to like add in, like trying to balance out between Snow White being this representing femininity and all that type of stuff while trying to be the girl boss. But at the very least, they're trying to find a balance in those things. This movie, on the other hand, they took away the whole representation of what Snow White represented in the original, and and replaced it with this girl boss archetype, right? I don't understand why they want to do this, but I mean, it can work it done right. But at the same time, this is Disney Snow White we're talking about, right? Couldn't they at least try to honor the representation of who Snow White represents? Just saying. Anyway, but like the bandits and the dwarves didn't really serve the purpose as much in this movie, but Dolby Dolby gets some dialogue. He gets some dialogue in this movie, and I'm just like, I mean, I was kind of okay with it, but the fact that Dolby gets a little more character than what Grumpy did in the original did stir up a lot of questions. Like I remember Grumpy from the original. Like Grumpy was so grumpy to the point where when Snow White came over and she she really changed the whole perspective of the seven dwarves. Even Grumpy, who is so upset at Snow White's death, like he feels so upset after realizing like what Snow White has done for not only him but for the seven dwarves. Like she changed Grumpy's perspective of how he viewed on Snow White, and it felt heartbroken to see Grumpy that upset. And this is something that was missing in the live action remake too, right? And while I'm at it too, Snow White just comes into the cottage, right? She doesn't like how in the original she comes into the cottage and and realizes that, oh wait, these there must be orphans. That's too bad. Oh, how about I clean them up? How about I clean up the place for them and maybe they can allow me to stay? That whole thing was taken out of the live action movie. So she basically broke into the cottage and just sleep on their beds, right? And that's what happened. And while I'm at it too, she doesn't use the broom as much to sweep the floor. I mean, she does it for one moment and she gives it back to the dwarves. And during the Whistle While You Work song. I mean, it was a good sequence. The whole song is a good sequence, but That whole thing was missing. Snow White. You know, the dwarves accepting Snow White into the cottage, and after cleaning up the place, right? That whole thing was missing in that live action remake. She just walked into the house. She just walked into the house. So she's basically like, how do I say this, homewrecker, I guess. Not the way how I want to put it, but damn, that's just low. I guess the writers were in a rush for this. And also to mention the character of Jonathan, like Andrew Burnap, who plays Jonathan in this movie. I thought he was okay, but for the character, I didn't really care for the character as much. Although aside from him teaming up with the bandits, which I thought was pretty cool, and of course, that little action sequence that he had with the bandits going up against the royal guards in the forest, I thought that was cool, but I just didn't care for the character as much. I mean, sure, he's no prince, but at the same time, he was an okay addition, but at the same time, I just didn't really care for this character as much. Even the chemistry with him and Rachel Zegler, I mean, it was a bit iffy in my personal opinion, though. And another thing to bring up too is the final confrontation between Snow White and the Evil Queen, and that's towards the end of the movie. It's particularly the Queen's demise. So, so Snow White. So you probably know Snow White marched on over to the kingdom, and of course, being stopped by the Queen's guards. Although that moment when she tested Snow White, to strike the evil queen down, I thought that was a pretty good moment. But to me, what ruins this whole final moment is her ultimate demise, right? So at the end of the movie, the evil queen gets sucked into her own magic mirror at the end, right? And that to me felt very anticlimactic. Like, it reminded me of Magnifico's defeat at the end of Wish. So, yes, this is basically ripping off of Wish, where Magnifico gets sucked into his own staff and is basically, the magic mirror. This is what happened to Gal Gadot's evil queen. But actually, before that, before she got sucked in, the magic mirror tells the queen that Snow White will always be fairer than her due to being kind and just. Well, I guess it's the mirror of truth then, right? Oh, man. I mean, hey, there was a lasso of truth, now there's a mirror of truth. But the evil queen destroys the mirror and, of course, revealed to be the source of her powers, resulting in her turning herself into glass and gets sucked into the vortex while the magic mirror repairs itself. Yeah, that's how the evil queen went out. Like, she gets sucked into her own mirror by, destroying the power that she sought of. Like, although her death is violent, like, the way how she turned into glass is very violent, to me, it felt very anticlimactic, and I felt very empty about it. I'm just like, really? That's how the evil queen goes out. Like, I remember in the original Snow White, it's basically the dwarves going after the evil queen, who's basically disguised as the old hag, and they were on this rocky cliffside, and the evil queen, as like I said, the old hag was about to roll them over with a giant boulder until lightning struck the cliffside, and the queen fell all the way down to the bottom of the ravine with the giant boulder and multiple rocks rolling on top of her. And if that did not kill her, then the vultures did. That's how the evil queen, the first Walt Disney animated feature film villain, died in that very first film for Walt Disney animated feature film, right? Like, that's how the evil queen went out in the original. This one is just basically, oh, she broke the magic mirror, turns into glass, gets sucked into the magic mirror. Bye-bye. That's how the evil queen went out. And to me, that felt very anticlimactic at the end. It's just basically Wish all over. It's basically Wish all over again, minus the singing, right? and of course, obviously, the movie ends with Snow White getting married. To which, side note, her wedding dress almost resembles what Lord Farquaad was wearing in the first Shrek movie. Yes, obviously enough, Rachel Zegler's Snow White looks like Lord Farquaad in the live action remake of Snow White. And that's pretty much it. That's basically my whole positives and negatives of this movie. So, yeah, so there you have it, folks. Now, before I close off, how about I talk a little bit, how about I give in a little bit of trivia for you? So, oddly enough, I mentioned Dylan Postal and Jason Acuna, although otherwise Dylan Postal is known as Hornswoggle for the WWE, and of course Jason Acuna is basically Wee Man from Jackass. They were two of the many little people actors or dwarf actors who wanted to play the dwarves in this movie. And of course, adding to the trivia is basically Peter Dinklage alleging the original film depicted the dwarves in a negative light, with Disney announcing on January 25th of 2022 that they would approach the characters differently while also consulting members of the dwarfism community, with many fans of the original, including Dylan Postal, pointing out that many of Dinklage's remarks were incorrect. For one, he said the dwarves lived in a cave, and they actually lived in a very nice cottage and worked in a diamond mine, which in the original movie is actually true. They lived in a cottage and they worked in the mines. Basically, they're basically working class dwarves. Now, the architecture of the townhouses near the castle resembles the architectural styles of the Hesse region in Germany, which is where the Brothers Grimm, who published one of the most famous versions of the Snow White story, were from. That's actually a very, very interesting trivia right there. Now, now of course, here's another interesting trivia for you. The crown and makeup that Gal Gadot was wearing, it took 4 hours to apply onto Gal Gadot. That's actually pretty interesting trivia for you. Now, Martin Kleba, who played Grumpy in this movie, this is his third Snow White adaptation, and he portrayed one of the dwarves in the made-for-TV film Snow White, The Ferris on the Mall, named Friday, and of course another dwarf named Butcher in Mirror Mirror, which came out in 2012. And that's the movie with Julia Roberts as the evil queen, and Lily Collins, who is the daughter to Phil Collins, who's the daughter to singer Phil Collins, was Snow White in that movie. Lily Collins played Snow White in Mirror Mirror. Now, moving forward, Benji Pasek and Justin Paul, who wrote the songs for the new Snow White movie, also contributed to La La Land and The Greatest Showman, and they wrote original songs for the movie. Now, here's another interesting thing for the original Snow White. In the original film, Walt Disney and his team had intended for the evil queen to lock up the prince and have a scene where he tries to escape her dungeon, but was scrapped as the team wasn't experienced enough to work on another human character. The idea is revisited here, in where Jonathan, the stand-in for the prince, is locked up in the dungeon after the evil queen realizes that he knows where Snow White is. I'll be honest, I think that was a good thing that they actually put in for this movie, because I never realized that this was an original idea for the original movie, and I think coming back to that scene, but this time putting in the live action movie, I think that was an interesting move by Disney to do that. To me, I think that's a pretty cool idea, giving in a little character to, like, what's the prince been up to, and how does he know about Snow White? You know, I think that was an interesting way to, give a little more character to the prince, although Jonathan, I should say, even though this idea was not used in the original movie. I mean, it was an idea, but it was never used. So that's an interesting fact right there. So anyway, now I already mentioned that Steven Spielberg suggested that Mark Webb cast Rachel Zegler as Snow White ever since Spielberg directed her on West Side Story, which came out in 2021. Now, The film was originally going to be released on March 22nd of 2024, but unfortunately it got postponed to October. But it got postponed in October of 2023 to March 21st of 2025 due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strikes. Now Gal Gadot. Now this is not Gal Gadot's first Disney movie. She voiced Shank in Disney's Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Breaks the Internet, in which Snow White and Grumpy both made an appearance. Now, all the dwarves are CGI, which is obviously obvious. And then, here's another thing. Rachel Zegler was so scared of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which came out in 1937, that she just watched it once and never picked it up again. Huh. Well, says the actress who decided to, call the prince a stalker. Yeah, so the same Snow White actress was so scared that she even went on an interview to say that she even went on an interview to also mention that the prince is a stalker. That's interesting, but whatever. And also, speaking of Zegler, she and Gal Gadot previously starred together in Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which came out in 2023. So that's another. So this is obviously their second collaboration. Snow White is basically Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler's second collaboration since Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which came out in 2023. By the way, just to let you all know. And that's basically about it. That's basically about it in terms of the trivia for you. Now, okay. Now, anyway, this was a lot to get through, folks. And I mean, it wasn't that bad watching it, but I can understand the problems that went on behind the scenes. Like with so much controversy like that, it downgrades the expectations from people who really want to see this movie. Because with so much controversy, people will later realize like, yeah, I don't want to see this movie. With all the trouble that this film had, why bother even watching this movie? I mean, yeah, that's kind of like the way to put it right there. Even though there was a lot of controversy I saw, I kind of wanted to see the movie for myself just to see, just to see what was the point of it, right? And of course, and I just want to see the movie despite the controversy. I mean, to be quite honest, the whole controversies that happened really hurt the film in general, and of course, Disney doing their live action remake style, their old live action remake routine. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure everybody's getting tired of this. Yes, of course, we are getting a live action Lilo and Stitch movie that is supposed to come out sometime in the summer of 2025. I mean, from what I saw in that trailer, it looks very promising, but I don't know. We'll see what happens when that movie hits theaters. But as for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but as for Snow White, it became a, let's just say the title alone became a punchline after the whole controversies, including Rachel Zegler and the dwarves. Like it went from Snow Brown and the seven hobos, Mud Brown and the seven DEI hires. That's the whole punchline of this title, right? And of course, other people are making punchlines of this title as well, if you know what I'm saying, right? Overall, I think the movie is okay in general, but at the same, even though it split me down the line, but at the same time, with the trouble behind the scenes, it really hurt the film. And as for Rachel Zegler, though, I think this really tarnished her Hollywood career. Like she appeared in at least a few box office bombs. Like West Side Story, even though it got critically acclaimed, it was a box office bomb. So was Shazam: Fury of the Gods, including this other movie Y2K. That one also bombed. And then she was also in the Hunger Games movie, The Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, which actually made money. Although she was more of a supporting character in that movie rather than a leading character, if you know what I'm saying, right? Say what you will about Rachel Zegler, but I think she's a fine actress on her own. I mean, she has done theater performances before in her childhood. So at the very least, she does have that theater kid vibe. In fact, she also did the stage adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and I think she's got another stage musical. I think she's got another theater stage production coming soon. I believe. I got a feeling in terms of lead actress roles, it's gonna be hard to come back to, right? Especially after these many film bombs, and of course the Snow White movie. That one may bombed as well, but we'll see. But we'll see what's gonna happen. I mean, who knows? I think down the line. I mean, who knows? But who knows? But she's a good singer too. She has that singing. She has the singing chops right there, which I actually enjoyed. Right. But personality wise, she's really gotta. She really needs to look herself in the mirror and realize what has been going on. Her personality and behavior needs to be worked on. And I really hope down the line she could at least I hope down the line her acting career can continue, but it'll be hard to tell after this live action remake of Snow White. But other than that, only time will tell. But otherwise, that's pretty much it for this movie. I know this was a lot to talk about, but hey, it's worth it. By the way, just to let everybody know, this is an opinionated episode, so if you guys like this movie, that is totally fine. I completely understand that. But to me, I thought it was okay. It just split me down the line despite all the controversies that went on behind the scenes. So anyway, that's about it. So what did you all think of the live action remake of Disney's Snow White? Did you like this movie? Did you not like the movie? Did you think the movie was okay at best? I would like to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning into Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.